If you're new to the channel and you like what you see, well, welcome to Life of Gaz. Now, I try my best to upload a new video every single Wednesday, and if you want to keep up to date with that, make sure you hit the subscribe button and more importantly ring the bell to get all the notifications.
Well, hey guys, welcome to Life of Gaz, and in this episode today I'm going to do some tackle tips. Unfortunately we're still on lockdown and it's a shame, but it's the way it is. So what I'm going to do is take advantage of this and show you guys how I set some of my stuff up. Now this first one is going to be based around knots, and it's going to be some of the most significant knots that I use and the ones that I trust.
So first of all, before we start getting into the knots, a good way of securing them with the tag end is to put a little bobble on the end of it. Now it's very simple, just get a lighter and all you do is just melt the end of that line until it creates that little ball. Now you can go a little bit too far with this. The whole sort of trick is to keep the flame away from it and not set it alight, but if you do, it doesn't matter, but you do have to let it cool. And the first one we're going to start with today is a Palme knot. Now it's a dead easy knot, this one. All you do is you thread the tag end through the hook, pull it through, thread it back through the eye of the hook again, and that gives you a loop on the other side. Now with the line itself, then what you do is you create a loop in that again. So you've got the tag end and the main line end, that creates a loop. Then you put that first loop that you made through there and you just tighten it down ever so slightly, not all the way. And then you thread the big loop which you've got left over the shank of the hook and through over the bend of that hook, and then pull it tight, and that gives you a nice secure knot. And for the next knot I got a double Palme as well. Now this knot is essentially the same as the other one, but it can be a bit stronger on certain types of line. So all you do, just like the other knot, is you thread the line through the eye one way, then turn the tag end round, thread it back through, leaving a loop on the other side of the hook. Then you make that second loop again with the hook in the middle of it, and then you thread that first loop which is dangling out at the other end of your line through that little loop twice, and then you go over the hook again and tighten up. Now when you do the Palme knots, one of the things you do need to do is you need to make sure that you get that loop past the eye of the hook, and the whole idea is that it's not sort of sitting around the eye, is the fact that this little loop actually ends up as part of the knot which locks it together. Knot tying skills are looking a little bit sloppy here, but I was trying to tie them from the perspective I see them at, which meant actually tying them upside down for me, which obviously meant I had to do a little bit of practice, and they're not quite as fluid as when I'm out on the bank or out on the beach. Now next we've got a very common knot. We've got the clinch knot. Now this is one which can be a staple for most people, and it's actually pretty much one of my most go-to knots out of all the knots that I use. But it's very simple. All you do is you put the tag end of the line through the eye of the hook, then you bring that back around, face it back towards your main line, pull that around a number of times. Now the number does depend really on the thickness of your line, And then once you've got enough twists on there, and for a thinner line I'll use about 7, then you go back down through the loop which is created by the eye of the hook, and then you create a second loop and you put the line back through there before pulling down tight. Now something I'm not doing here because you can't really see it on camera is wetting the line, but if you wet the line it stops the line sticking and jumping, and it stops it snapping when you're tying it. I'm going to show you the clinch knot again with a difference. Now the reason why there's a difference is because I'm using thicker line. In the first video, with the one which has just been shown, I was using 10-pound line, which meant that if I'd only locked it off once, the line does tend to pull back through. But with the 25-pound line, I don't go back through itself. So I put it through the eye of the hook, I turn it around the main line, and then I take it back through that first loop, and then I tighten down. And that holds perfectly well, just like that. Now as the line gets thicker, you do use less twists, and on the 25-pound line I only tend to use about 5. And for this 60-pound line I only use 2 to 3. Now one of the things you do with this knot, especially when you start going up into the thicker lengths of line, is that's where I start bobbling it. So what I'll do is I'll just show you what I'm doing here. Now when you bobble it, just like I seen at the start of the video, what you do is you create a little ball using a flame. Make sure the flame doesn't touch the line, and also don't let it burn up actually into the knot. You need to stop that from melting away before it actually hits the knot itself. Now the next knot's the snell knot. Now this is a knot which I use when I'm tying feathers, or even if I'm tying a hair rig for a carp. Now the whole trick with this line is the fact that it goes around the actual shank of the hook itself. So you can do this on hooks which actually don't have the eye holes. Sometimes you'll get them in freshwater with just a flat plate. Now all you do for this knot is you loop the line backwards on itself whilst it's running down the shank of the hook. That leaves a that leaves a loop behind you. Then you twist the line around itself, and once you've got enough twist, depending on what you're doing and why you're tying this knot, then you bring the tag end back to the little loop at the back, pull it through, tighten down, and then pull the whole knot up towards the eye of the hook where it'll sit secure in place. So next I got a really useful knot for holding things in place, the sliding stop knot. Now this knot essentially is your thicker main line with a thinner piece of line, just a sort of 10-inch off cut normally, which slides up and down and keeps beads and weights and stuff where they should be. So all you do is you lay the 2 bits of line on top of each other, and then with the thinner bit of line you bring it back over itself, then you twist it around just like you do on the clinch knot. And once you've got about sort of 5 or 6 twists, depending on how much of a stop knot you would like, then what you do is you bring the tag end back through the loop which is just held in your fingers, tighten up, butt it up with your fingernails, and then that will slide up and down, and all you do is just trim the 2 ends off. So the next one's a double fisherman's knot, and this is a knot for joining 2 bits of line together. So if you're an attaching and a leader, then that's the knot you tend to use. But all I do for this is I lay the 2 bits of line on top of each other. Then with the tag end of one of those bits I create a loop, much in the same way as you do with the sliding stop knot. Then I bring that around for the number of twists required, and this again, just like the clinch knot, depends on the thickness of the line you're using. And once I've got enough twists, then I'll put it back through the loop where I've bent the line over itself, and then pull that tight and butt it up. Once I've done that on that side, then I'll follow the same process on the other. And once both knots are tied, then what I'll do is I'll pull both bits of line apart. This brings the two knots together, tightens them up, locks them in place, and then I just trim the tag ends off, and that gives me a nice firm knot to hold those two lines and keeps the lines both flowing in the same direction with no kinks. So the next knot that I'm going to use is a knot that I used a lot when I used to do a lot of freshwater fishing, which is a surgeon's loop, and it's got loads of applications. But essentially what you do is you get your main line, you double it back on yourself to make a loop right up at the tag end. Then with that first loop, what you'll do is you'll wrap the two bits of line around your fingers, and that gives you a second loop that you can then thread the first loop through, and you do that twice. Now if you do it twice, the knot actually locks in place and is a great knot to be used in almost any sort of fishing really. Now this knot's great if you want two lines which are going to face the same direction, or you want a loop right at the end of your line. But if you want a loop which pokes out from the side, or you want to use it as a hook length that pokes straight out from the side, then the next one is the one which I use, which I call a drop loop, and some people call blood loop as well. Now it can be a bit daunting, but I'll talk you through it because I've managed to find a way that simplifies this loop for the way I tie it. So first of all, what you do is you create a loop in your line where you want that knot to actually be. It really doesn't matter as long as you've got enough line out there. So once you've created that first loop, then just like the surgeon's loop but with just the tag end, you post that through the loop 3 times. Once you've done that, then you put your finger in the way to create a little loop, then go in the same direction, you post it through another 3 times, and then that gives you the basis and the bulk of this knot. Now you'll get a little eye in the middle of that where your finger's been through, and the loop which you've got above it, all you do is you post that down through. Now you need 3 points of contact to tighten this knot up. First you need to hold on to both ends, then you need to hold on to the loop as well, otherwise it'll all follow back round and get quite messy. So generally I'll hold the loop in my mouth and then I'll pull the other 2 bits down with my hands. Then once you do this, you create a loop that pokes straight out from the side, and this can be great for say drop shot fishing or fly fishing, and this is some of the knots which this is the knot that I use in that application. So there you have the 8 knots which I use throughout my entire fishing life. Now I don't really go off of these knots because I trust each and every one of them, and that means therefore I've got no reason to look for anything new. But in the coming weeks, especially if we stay on lockdown, then I'll try and do some tackle tips videos where these knots will start showing off their applications.
Well, I hope you guys have found that helpful, and there will be other videos coming up even outside of lockdown. I may put a few on where some of these knots will start coming into play and you'll see how and where I use them. But for now, if you've liked this video, make sure you hit the like, the subscribe button just down here. Make sure you check out my last video over here and my tackle tips playlist up top.